Stepping up to the couch, it's Brian, who led the league last season in cracked screens. But with his new athletic case, it looks like that won't be the case. Touchdown, Brian!
Before we get into the video, I was on the Bulls podcast the other day, and I would like to ask you guys to check it out. Here's a clip.
It's time us as fans get buckled in and prepared to make that race down to the muck, the bottom, the mud, and tank so that we can stay in the hunt to get one of those picks. Or do you think we should actually go for it, try and stay competitive, and attract some free agent talent? Rusty, what do you think?
Here's the thing. I was on the fence as to, for a part of the time, I was on the let's make the playoffs train. But also I was like, I think we need one more big time guy to be a contender in the long term. So I was like debating short term versus long term there. But as for how I felt about tanking versus trying to win, I think the universe kind of made that decision for me by taking out 4 out of our top most important players.
True.
I don't know how much of that is our decision at this point.
If you're a Bulls fan and you're looking for more Bulls content, I would highly recommend this podcast. With that out of the way, let's get into the video. The Chicago Bulls have sucked so far this season. I would sugarcoat that, but that's not really how I roll. A lot of this was due to injury. Lauri Markkanen, our second most important player, went out with an injury before the season started. After adding 16 pounds of muscle, that was a huge blow. Then after coming back from injury, Kris Dunn got injured after his season debut game where he dropped 9 points and 7 assists. Dunn is the core of our defense and our best playmaker. Bobby Portis went down as well. He had 6th man of the year expectations. He averaged 13 points and 7 rebounds on 47% field goal percentage and 36% from 3-on-3 attempts per game last season on 22 minutes per game, with a per 36 of 21 and 11. And Denzel Valentine is out for the season. He's not that good, but he's an important rotation player. And finally, the Jabari Parker experiment has been an absolute failure. While he's been good for the past couple of games, overall for the season, out of the 430 players in the NBA, Jabari is ranked number 430 in plus minus, which essentially means that Jabari makes the rest of the team worse than any other player in the NBA. So he's not exactly helping, really earning that $20 million contract. But as you all should know, in the absence of all of those players, Zach LaVine has stepped way the hell up this season, averaging 25.7 points, 5.4 rebounds, and 4.5 assists. But because of the lack of offensive help on his team, the defense of opposing teams only have one guy to focus on, so as a result, LaVine has had to take a lot of bad shots, so he's only shooting 43% from the field and 30% from 3. But he also was sick for a 3-game stretch where he shot terribly. So I'd say he'd be more around 45 to 46% had he not gotten sick. So the point is, the Bulls are trash, even more trash than they were last year. They currently have the 4th worst record in the NBA with a 5-16 record, so just like last year, it looks like Bulls fans will be watching a lot of college games, specifically Duke games. And looking at where we are in the lottery, the Bulls currently have the 4th best odds at the first pick in the draft. But due to the new lottery rule changes, the difference in odds between 1 and 4 is only a 1.5% difference. The top 3 worst records all have the best odds at number 1, and after that it gradually goes down. So the Bulls, who were only, ironically enough, 1 loss of a tiebreaker away from the 2nd pick last year, because had the Bulls lost their tiebreaker versus the Kings, they would have moved up to 2nd in the draft and the Kings would have been stuck at 7. But anyways, point is, the Bulls could very well end up with the 1st pick. Even with everyone returning from injury, I fully expect there to be chemistry problems, along with changes in the offense that should take some adaptation, and Jabari Parker at the 4 was bad enough. Now just imagine him at 3. That'll be a full-fledged nightmare. Now, most fans, from what I've seen on Twitter, would want the Bulls to draft Zion Williamson. Zion is also going first in a lot of mock drafts that I've seen, with RJ Barrett going too. But if the Bulls ended up with the number 1 pick, I'd like to make my case for why the Bulls should take RJ Barrett over Zion Williamson. Now real quick, if the Bulls fall out of the top 2, this video is pretty much pointless. So real quickly, I would like to talk about some guys that will go under Zion and RJ. The 2 best guys for the Bulls after Zion and RJ would be Nasir Little and Cameron Reddish. Reddish is a 6'8" forward who could potentially guard 1 through 4. He's a solid scorer from all over the court, good off of the dribble, the best shooter of the Duke Big Three. He's a good defensive player, a great athlete, and he has a 6-foot wingspan, but he's a little inconsistent, sometimes struggling with decision making. He's one of the best all-around prospects from the draft. Now Little is 6'6", 220 pounds with a 7'2" wingspan. He's an explosive athlete, extremely physical. He's pretty much going non-stop. He has one of the most NBA-ready bodies in the draft. He's also a defensive monster. Not only does he have the size and athleticism, but he also takes pride in defense. He has the effort to match his physicality. Like Reddish, he should be able to defend 1 through 4. His offensive game, however, is pretty limited. He's not too bad at anything, but he's also not too good at anything. He has a good shot form, but it doesn't go in all that much. His ball handling is meh, his creating ability is mediocre. He's a good offensive rebounder though, averaging over 5 a game per 40 minutes. So Reddish is the better scorer, but Little is the far superior defender. And considering how bad the Bulls defense is, and the fact that we have Levine and Markkanen, I think the offense should be fine. So a huge defensive plus at small forward seems like the best option. But with that out of the way, best case we end up with a top 2 pick, and we get a choice of either Zion Williamson or RJ Barrett. So let's talk about those 2. Zion Williamson is clearly the most talked about prospect from this year's draft. His absurd athleticism matched with his absurd size at 6'7", 285 make for some of the most entertaining basketball out there. He is ridiculously physical, that 285 pounds is all muscle, and he has a vertical north of 40 inches. His size and athleticism make scoring inside easy for Zion. His fierce dunking reminds people of Sean Kemp and Larry Johnson. His size doesn't limit his speed though. The way his speed and jumping ability contrasts with his size reminds some of LeBron James. His athleticism also makes him a fantastic rebounder and defensive player. He's also seemingly more willing to hustle than most top prospects with his talent would. Take this play versus Ferris State. Duke is up by 65 points and Zion is still diving on the floor for the ball. His chase down blocking ability is another reason why people compare him to LeBron. He's also a fantastic passer, and he's a solid ball handler, and he can be the pick and roll man and the ball handler. But he's a poor shooter. Though his 3-point shot has looked better in college than expected, he's a career 64% free throw shooter. And he's shooting 68% from the free throw line in college, and being that he's mostly an inside scorer, teams would try hack a Zion in the NBA. And better than expected from 3 for Zion is 25% on 1.3 attempts per game. He's a pretty awful shooter. And even though his size plays to his advantage, his game is that of a power forward. And there's a pretty good reason for the Bulls passing on a power forward. Basically, Zion is amazing, but he's more of a 4 in the NBA, so he really doesn't fit with this team who has Lauri Markkanen. He doesn't shoot the ball well at all, and he would be an awkward fit for a team with an established offensive system. A team like the Cavs or the Hawks, who don't have an established system yet, would be a better fit for Zion. So here's why RJ Barrett would fit perfectly with the Chicago Bulls. RJ is a 6'7" small forward. He's a serious athlete like Zion. He's a fantastic ball handler and much better passer than Zion. He's got incredible size and athleticism around the basket, and he is a far superior shooter, especially in the mid-range post area. He's also another player who wants to play defense, and he has the physical makeup to add to that effort. He should be a great defensive player in the NBA. The best player comparison for him would be Grant Hill, but a more modern example would be Paul George with more playmaking but less shooting ability, because he is inconsistent as a shooter. Not only is he a far better shooter than Zion, but he also has a much better looking form than Zion. He's shooting 32% from 3 on 6.3 attempts per game, which is far better than Zion's 25% on 1.3 attempts. Right now the Bulls are lacking in defense, playmaking, and they really need a small forward. RJ could be a significant upgrade in all 3 of those areas. While Zion is a more fun player, RJ is a far superior fit. RJ should become an average shooter in the NBA and a good playmaker for a 3. Something like 6 assists a game feels possible for him. LaVine and Markkanen as shooters would fit well around him. Dunn and Wendell should both be about league average 3-point shooters. The defense of RJ, Dunn, and Wendell should make up for Lauri Markkanen and Zach LaVine's defensive struggles. And Dunn, LaVine, and RJ as a whole should all be great handlers, and Dunn and RJ could be solid playmakers, while LaVine would be pretty meh. So the Bulls in a few years could have the talent for a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense with the addition of RJ Barrett. Okay, so I have a few quick updates. First, well, this isn't an update, but please check out the podcast. And second, I get a comment under pretty much any video that I post asking when the Goatmentary is coming out. Well, first of all, it was clearly a mistake to put a time frame on when that video was going to come out. I said that it would come out in like late in the summer. I was dumb to announce that video when I did, but I should have been able to get it out by now. However, I had some serious struggles with the channel, and right now, I have bills to pay, and this is my job because I'm living with my parents, so I can afford it to be because I'm in college right now, and speaking of college, that's gotten in the way. Basically, I bit off a lot more than I could chew, and I was dumb to give it a time period of when I said it would be. I probably shouldn't even announce it to begin with. But here's the good news. I'm only taking 2 classes next semester, so I can focus more on YouTube and be less stressed in general. Also, my Markelle Fultz video did fantastic. It's the first time I've hit 100k views in 3 months, and as a result, I have more than enough money for the next payment cycle. Not going to go into details about that, but because of that video's success, I can now spend more time working on the Goatmentary, and then following in the beginning of 2019, I'm going to have less school to worry about. So after this video, I probably won't be uploading for a while. I do have an Andre Karolinko video that will probably come out in December, but the rest of my time after this is full-on Goatmentary. I really am hopeful that I can have it out by early 2019, but I will not make any promises because clearly it was a mistake to do that last time. And if you're wondering why it's taking so long, well, the video is projected to be nearly 2 hours long, so that's a lot of editing and a lot of writing and just a lot of work in general, so that's why it's taking so long. But thank you for understanding. Check out the podcast once again. That's the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue